I recently watched a video by Mr. Matty Plays called A Settlement Mode, Elder Scrolls 6 Wishlist, and if you want to go and watch it, I'll leave a link down below, and you should do that actually, because his video got me thinking about what they should have done in Fallout 4. And it was triggered by a lot of the things he was saying, because I pretty much agree with him completely across the board. See, I love the settlement building in Fallout 4, but I recognise that it does feel a bit, well, generic and bland, and it also feels a little tagged on to me. It kind of feels like a mod that's been added, and had it been a mod, it would have been the greatest mod ever. But because it was part of the base game, it kind of lacks... It lacks that polish and finesse I would like to have seen on it, and it does seem occasionally to just kind of get in the way of the game. And it doesn't add anything for those people who aren't natural born, builders, Minecraft players and that sort of thing. So what could they have done to make it better? Well, I agree with Matty when it comes down to having settlers not called settler, for example, would have been a good start. Have named settlers who have stories and quests. Have it so that they come to your settlement at a certain point and have ideas of their own and help you build up the settlement you're in a very similar way to a mod that he actually mentioned in the video, which was Helgen Reborn, where you can you don't build it just by yourself, you actually get some help from the people in the place. Perhaps you do the building yourself, but there are some key things you need to do to get started. And perhaps these people only get attracted to your settlement at certain points, when your settlement's got a certain defense level, or a certain population, or a certain happiness limit. And you could have something like Sanctuary, which would be the great big generic town, although I would probably raise the limit for the number of settlers from, I think it's 10 plus your charisma, right? I would have it as something like 20 plus double your charisma. So you can have bigger towns, and that would be a generic settlement, probably not that different to the ones we have now. But perhaps the other settlements could all be, well, different. Maybe you only need 3 or 4 big town-like settlements, and you could have a lot of other settlements that, well, basically served completely different purposes. Perhaps the one on Nordhagen Beach would have been something completely different, not a city. The best examples I was thinking of were something like the old drive-in cinema. Maybe you take that over and there'd be someone there who says, you know what, we should turn this place into a cinema. We should turn it into a cinema. People could come here to be entertained. And you go through certain quests, you build certain things up, and you start attracting people who want to be in the entertainment business. Maybe you have a bar as well, and it becomes an entertainment complex. And people from your other settlements could maybe take time off, go off and become happier. Maybe you could even say to people, if your happiness goes below 65, you are allowed to go off to the entertainment complex, and now they're producing less food, but when they come back their happiness is at 100 or something kind of like that. Think of the castle. Instead of turning the castle into a settlement, what would it be like if it was a Minutemen recruiting centre? So every time you didn't get any settlers joining, what you got were Minutemen, and they were a Minutemen training crew, and they would train up people to become, well, basically the fighting wing of the Minutemen. And whenever a settlement came under attack, instead of you getting the radio message and you having to run off and fight, they sent out a team who should, in theory, be able to get there just as fast as you, and they fight. And the more you build up the castle, the more advanced it gets, the better that team is, the more likely they are to repel the attack. Perhaps you could set up a settlement in an old university, college, and somebody would appear at the door and say, hey, I used to be a teacher. Have you thought about turning this into a place of learning? And then there's a series of quests. You do that, and then, you continue to build it up until you get a certain level in science, and then you can send your settlers off to this this university for a few weeks or game months, and then they come back as scientists capable of doing something sciencey in your settlement. You send them off to learn medicine so they can come back and be a doctor. Rather than just assigning random settler to the medical trader bench, you actually have to send your guy off to learn how to be a doctor at the university. Imagine that. Now, I appreciate this is a hell of a lot more advanced than what they've got, but I think that would actually be fascinating. The option to have settlements that were more than settlements. They served a very unique purpose. And it doesn't even need to be big settlements. You could have lots of little, well, let's not even call them settlements, businesses. Think of the Drumlin Diner. When you go there and either help one party or the other, you can then maybe go into partnership with this person. They become a business partner, you provide them support, you provide them materials, because of course you could be going off into the wasteland and finding stuff, bringing it back to the trader and letting them sell. You then get a share of the profits. But you can also provide them defenses, maybe build it up a little bit so they feel more secure, or perhaps it attracts more trade. At a certain level, maybe you can get the option to hire bodyguards for them, and that would make the place more secure, and so on. And you could have lots of these all over the place. And of course, they would still work as part of the supply lines, so you could dump stuff to be used in other settlements, and so on. I mean, there's a lot of other things you could do. You could have people setting up a vertibird pad or something. You could have people setting up checkpoints. There's 1,000 different options where instead of just generic settlement number 1, number 2, number 3, you've got a few real settlements. These are places where people just go and live and farm and, exist. And then you have some things that are actually trading posts, training posts, and so on. So that was my idea, and it was triggered by Matty's video, and I thought to myself, if they'd have done this, if they'd have actually made it so these settlements felt, well, like they had a purpose beyond existing just to get, your happiness level up, or in my case, a place to dump junk so you could share junk between places and modify your weapons. If you could actually have them so they felt real, with real people, with quests, it would have gone a long way to making the settlement system a major success. And I would be interested to see if they could do the same in Elder Scrolls 6. Something similar, some major settlements, but then maybe some places where you build up a training place for fighters or mages or whatever. I mean, maybe when you join the Fighters Guild and eventually become the Grand Master, it unlocks the option for you to actually begin improving the place. Same with the Mages Guild. Maybe you can start tearing down some walls that look a bit crappy and building them with something a little more impressive. They've now got the system for settlement building. They could actually use it as an extension of the game rather than something that feels a little tagged onto the game and that just invades the game occasionally. Actually, I really like that idea. I like the idea of settlements being unlocked once you've finished major factions. You are now the Grand Master of the Wizards Guild. Let's build a big wizard tower or something. It gives you something to do after you've done the questing as well, which could extend the life of the game. Anyway, that's it. That's just me rambling on about settlements. As I said, go and watch Matty's video. He was discussing this, and basically it's his video that triggered all of these thoughts for me. So a big thank you to you, Matty. And thank you for listening to me ramble on, and I will catch you guys next time.